След състезанието, хората, които имаха VIP билет, имаше VIP лоджа, който...
Meet and greet след състезанието, да има възможност на тези, които са с VIP билетите, да се видят с всеки един от състезателите и да може да го поздрави, да си поговори с тях. Беше организирано точно както той каза, просто делено място, което е там около място за загрявка, с масички на всеки един състезател.
Да, общо-взето някакви питиета.
Храни даваха, аз тази храна не видях.
Някакви снаксове бяха давали, питиета и общо-взето един вид като някаква мини вечеря, която да се видиш с атлетите, да се даде автограф, да се направят снимки и така нататък. Което е доста яко, тъй като доста хора дойдоха на моя щанд, искаха да се разпишем на тези каталози, които бяха дали. Вътре има за SBD, какво се случва за Sheffield, всички състезатели и хората си искаха да имат за спомен да се разпишеш на всеки един каталог, като си остава доста голям спомен, че да помниш какво се е случило с това състезание. Доста големи личности дойдоха при мен да ме поздравят, като Джоуи Флекс, Ерик Хелмс, Омар Юсуф. Тоест, направил съм им добро впечатление, че съм се представил добре и съм представил толкова малка страна на такова високо ниво.
Аз бих казал, че много от хората там бяха толкова, в смисъл, разговорливи и дори да много малко бяха индивидите, които избягваха да говорят с който и да е. При повечето, като отидеш до тях, те са отворени това да си кажат 2-3 приказки с тебе и не се дърпаха особено.
Да, общо взето този мит беше доста приятелски настроен, т.е. нямаше никакви негативни неща и поне аз не видях в случая. Общо взето нищо лошо към никой нямах в целия мит, цялата седмица и така нататък. Тоест всички бяха доста приятелски настроени и си говорихме нормално.
Да, което за такъв евент според мен е важно, тъй като ти не си там просто за състезанието, си там и за контактите, които завързваш и особено ако си човек, който си е платил VIP билета със сигурност, искаш да си кажеш нещо с някой, така че малко или много е плюс за всеки.
Да.
Нещо, което забравихме да споменем за самото състезание е начина, по който определяше печалбата, кой печели, тъй като това не е стандартния GeoPoint, който се използва на останали международни.
IPF GeoPoints, това са точки, които спрямо личното ти тегло и дигнатите килограми са формула, която изчислява. Това състезание беше по-различно, тъй като тук се определяше процента спрямо рекорда, който е световния рекорд. Така че ако рекорда е 800 кг и ти направиш на това състезание 810, ти си близо 105% над рекорда си. Тоест в случая ти си със сигурност над първите места, които си от общото класиране. Независимо дали другите са вдигнали 1000 кг, 900 кг и така нататък. Тоест всеки си имаше категория, имахме си кантар, който примерно аз бях 9-3, т.е. за да мога да щупя рекордите, трябваше да се състезавам в 9-3 категория. Така че правилата бяха абсолютно нормални, както са стандартни. Т.е. имаше категории.
И имаше и допинг тест.
Да, за любопитните, които доста невярващи има и все още ще продължават да ги има, т.е. че всички зобят и няма чист спорт. Февруари месец, т.е. месец преди състезанието имаше кръвна проба и урина и веднага след състезанието още една проба, която беше пак на всички състезатели. Така че не мисля, че рекордите се правят толкова лесно. Допинг съм убеден, че няма, тъй като знам на какво ниво съм, знам, че съм доста близко до тези резултати, които най-добрите атлети правят и виждам какво коства, като това какво даваш в целия този процес, за да стигнеш до такова ниво, така че хората, които коментират, ама тия зобят, ама не ги хващат и резултатите им отиват в частни лаборатории, са хора, които ходили са може би един-два пъти на интернационално състезание, не се класирали добре, даже не се състезават повече в случая, защото са прекратили това, защото няма пари, парите си ги правиш сам в случая. Така че и такива коментари идват от хора, които не са стигнали далече, общо взето, така да кажем. И никога няма да си го изкарат от главата, че човешкото тяло няма лимити и това зависи от тебе колко ще се пушнеш, т.е. ще се натиснеш. Така че винаги такива коментари ще ги има. Отдавна вече избягвам да коментирам каквито и да е неща, свързани с допинга и така нататък.
В тази връзка с състезателите, аз мога да включа тук, че разговарях с няколко човека, които, примерно, давам конкретен пример, Иви, която стана първа на жените. Заедно с нейния треньор ми направи впечатление каква подготовка те са извършили за това, тъй като тя получи официално покана много по-рано, колкото беше при нас. И те за целият този период, който са направили стратегия как точно да победят. Хванали са, изчислявали са потенциални килограми, които могат да направи всяка една от атлетките, така че те да направят някаква прогноза и спрямо възможностите на Иви с различните вероятности, които може тя да направи, като са преценили, че тя дори да влезе в долна категория, шансовете да бие там рекордите са много по-големи и реално има много по-голям шанс да стане първа. Така че още тук на ниво стратегически подход към състезанието, казвам евала на тези хора отвънка, понеже там не е просто да отидеш и да се пуснеш за кеф, не е просто да отидеш да направиш някакви числа, ами всичко е с един много по-предварителен и по-обстоен план, кой за какво отива и какво иска да направи на този подиум. Така че ако е просто, то просто процес, тези хора просто тренират, но има и още едно нещо, което им е в главата и не е просто днеска ще хода еди какво си, ще клякам там и ще прави еди какво си.
Иви е поканена още от 2019, тъй като 2019 състезанието не се проведе, тъй като поради вируса, който предстоящо после излезе и това състезание не се състоя. Така че те са направили този план още. Текущия план, който го бяха мислили, затова Иви да свали на по-долната категория, тъй като тя беше между 57 и 52, тя беше около 54-55 с моят треньор, който и прави нутришена, така са изчислили, че тя може да свали до 52 кг и да бие всички, т.е. да бие рекордите на по-долната категория, който никой не го очакваше дори и до последно, т.е. след като мина кантара, всичките разбраха, че тя ще се пуска в по-долната категория, така че никой не знаеше това и беше шокиран. Тоест това беше, може би,
много хитър ход.
Много хитър ход от нейната гледна точка и както казах, тези проценти от рекорда нямаше кой просто да я бие. Тоест тя си направи цифрите, които е могла да направи, сложи малко над рекорда, тя беше 105% от рекордите на 52 кг, така че това много трудно би се направило от човек, който да е билднат, така да го кажа, направен за трите движения, клек, лежанка, тяга. Тоест, трябва наистина да си много добър, за да подобриш това нещо.
Така, на следващия ден след състезанието имаше банкет.
Да.
Който банкет не беше просто банкет.
Да, банкета беше в дворец, буквално в дворец. Си представете голям дворец, който аз не виждам, че такъв не съм виждал. Сигурно няма да видя. Доста...
По-скоро беше някаква лятна резиденция.
Беше си дворец, да.
Да, дворец за богати англичани и тяхна лятна резиденция в момента е превърната в дом на културата. Факт е, че до момента банкет не е правен за състезание в такова място. Имаше си welcome party, след това официална вечеря. Самото място като средище на културата беше вау.
Да.
Беше малко по-далеч от там от града, в който бяхме в Шефилд. Беше извън града. Едно имение така отдалечено. Вечерята беше подготвена с продукти, които ги отглеждат специално на място там в шатото, което им е. Самото място беше уникално за преживяването си, там да го видиш, пък камо ли да си бъде там банкета. На самия този банкет обявиха, че Иви и Исус ще се състезават следващата година.
Да, те автоматично са класирани и са поканени за следващия Шефилд 2024. Така че има две по-малко места за класиране, тъй като това намалява шанса двама човека да бъдат поканени, така че битката трябва да започне още от сега. Затова трябва всички да се стегнат и основното състезание, което се готви всеки в момента, което ще важи доста пред това какво ще направиш там, е Малта. Тоест световното в Малта, така че ако направиш там добър резултат на тотала и рекордите спрямо това, има голям шанс да те поканят за Sheffield 24, което на мен е основната идея в това да си дам всичко точно там. Затова ми е доста важно. Но това ще направя рекап на състезанието като цяло. В отделно видео, тъй като беше просто това е каква е била обстановката на това състезание като цяло. Това беше видеото за нашето пътуване до Шефилд. Какво се случи, как протече, ще разберете. Аре, мокни, бе. Ще разберете в следващото видео, като направя мит рекап на опитите ми на клик лежанка мъртва тяга. Ще разберете моето мнение, как е протекла подготовката, дали съм доволен общо взето от представянето си и какви са следващите планове от тук нататък. Ако видеото ви е харесало, коментирайте отдолу, абонирайте се за канала, защото това помага и ни мотивира да правим нещата, които ги правим. Така че ще се видим в следващия клип. Ай, чао!
Взехме стаята на Райан, за да запишеме следващите неща. Така. Майко, нищо не чета. I can see him getting nervous, like, oh my god. Relax. We're just chatting.
Yep.
We can look at us, not at the camera, so it's
Okay, no camera.
really fun.
No camera.
No camera
No
here.
camera.
I'll be watching the camera, you can watch him.
Okay.
Окей. Кратко включваме от тук. За тези от вас, които вече знаят, отдавна ние сменили сме треньора, с който работим. За Емо не беше ясно кой, но мисля, че вече на масата това е кристално ясно, се запознати кой е новия му треньор. Представям ви Kedric.
Hello.
And now we're switching to English because of him.
Sorry, I only can speak English.
His Bulgarian is better than yours, though. Be careful.
Naboko. Dai.
Let's go. Oh, he is. Alright, so Kedric, I'll start with the questions.
Yes.
So, let's not turn it like an interview, please.
I'm fine. Don't worry. Not nervous at all. Completely calm.
I heard a expression like calm like a cucumber, so
Yeah.
that was grinding me.
Oh, yeah.
It was really strange to me. Okay.
Let's first questions for
No. I'll just start from there. How do you think that this preparation for the Sheffield passed to you, in your opinion? What it was like to coach Emil? What it seems like to you to work with him?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. I mean, Emil obviously is a highly accomplished lifter on his own, right? Plays second at Worlds by a very, very small margin, and third best lifter at Worlds South Africa. So naturally, for someone like me, there was a little bit of like pressure to deliver, especially when people would be like, oh, you know, Emil found a new coach, he's gonna put 50 kilos to his total. People always expect like this magic to happen, but people don't actually know what's behind the scenes. I mean,
Definitely.
previously in the videos, Emil talked about like your injuries and stuff like that, right? So people actually don't really know, and we didn't know that we were gonna get the Sheffield invite, right? So when we started working together, it wasn't like, oh, I need a new coach because I'm going to Sheffield. It was like, hey, I need a new coach because I need to fix myself, you know?
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly, that's what it is.
Right? And then naturally, with Sheffield coming up, we didn't want to waste the opportunity. So we said the time was short, but we did what we can. I think we made good use of the time. Naturally, the first couple of weeks, we took some time to figure out what works.
Yeah.
Right?
Probably 1 month.
Yeah. And you know, for someone of that high level, I think that was pretty good because we went through one block and then we could figure out what works, what didn't work, and then we learned from it. And then we also tried our best to allow you to train with relatively high stimulus without kind of like aggravating the injuries. So in general, I think that was a really good experience, right? Obviously, could his total be higher here? For sure, right? Everybody's total could be higher, but I think the outcome for Emil personally is just that we had the chat. We said that the most important thing for him was to come out of the meet healthy, right?
Yeah.
And not injured, because some people will really push the limit, you know, get injured on a particular lift. But for Emil, that wasn't the goal. The goal was to come out healthy, you know, knowing that he could finish a meet prep all the way up to the competition and then start training immediately again. And I think that was like really good.
Yeah, pretty good.
Because just to mention that he's preparing for marathon now, and so this was just like a checkpoint of his preparation, where he's at, and then just to push another 12 weeks to marathon. So that's why he needed to end up healthier.
Yeah.
After all of this.
Yeah, 100%.
No matter
yeah, I think it's just about like gaining momentum, right? Letting it snowball. You know, I mean, if you look at the results from Sheffield, you can see that his squat was 287.5. We squatted 275.
Yeah.
The heaviest during prep 275. Bench, you know, he missed 239. He benched 235.5 in training. You know, yeah, I think you have 235.5, 237.5. But we wanted to like, hey, let's give the world record a shot.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, we try.
Yeah. And then the deadlift, the heaviest we pulled was 320.
Yeah.
And we just said, cool, let's load up something that we can see if we can go increase the placing, right? I mean, you got the lift, you pull the weight up, right? Just due to some technical error that can...
I didn't see where it should be.
Yeah, I checked it a bit.
Yeah, we checked a few times.
Well, I mean, it is what it is.
That's the opinion of many people, but whatever.
Yeah.
The judges said other things, so...
Yeah, so at the end of the day, you know, it is what it is. Sheffield's over, and then we learn and we move forward.
Yeah.
What do you think was the biggest challenge for you for this preparation?
So I think that for me personally, it was hitting squat depth, right? And that really surprised me. Because of course in the last meet, I mean, it's public knowledge, right? Emil bombed at Euros because he couldn't hit squat depth, right? So for me, during training, there was some ambiguity, right, in terms of his depth. Then we had to change his technique to make sure we allow him to hit that the most consistent, because you only have 3 lifts on the platform, right? And in the end we figured it out. The secret, double go. Just shout it, and then he'll hit.
Yeah.
All
Secret
cue, right? You just shout it, and then 3 white lights for all 3 lifts, so 9 white lights on the squat. That was tough, you know. I wouldn't, because at the end of the day, if we want a shot on the world record, we need at least 1 squat, right? We can't bomb, right? So I was honestly thinking, maybe I just open with 220, because you definitely can squat all the way to the ground. But then I thought, if you open with 220, my thought was like, open with 220, you do maybe your first attempt in the warm up and then go back up, but we have to take like the elevator, the lift. So
not an option.
Yeah, I basically thought through like all the possibilities that I could really try to help you hit your squat depth, right? And obviously this was the things I thought about way before Sheffield. But obviously as Sheffield approached, we managed to find a way to help you hit that consistently, and on the platform it showed, right? And squat surprisingly was the lift that delivered the most, and I think it went really well.
Yeah, definitely. To mention for the video, the competitors were not warming up just behind the scene, and it was like downstairs they had to take elevator to go up. So it took time to get
5 minutes.
Around 5 minutes to get just next to the stage to get outside.
Yep.
Yeah. So this is really important because time matters.
Yeah.
Yeah, really time matters. Okay, so let me ask you, how did you get into the powerlifting?
Oh, myself, the long story short is that I was a really mediocre athlete and I wanted to be better. So I started to use like resistance training as a means to improve my athletic capability, right? I thought, if I can build more muscle on my legs, right? I used to play volleyball, so if I can build more muscle on my legs, I would jump higher, right? Unfortunately, I was still mediocre, but I figured out that I like lifting weights, so let's find a sport that doesn't require as much coordination like volleyball. I was a spiker, so yeah, they didn't require as much coordination as volleyball, and that's powerlifting. So it was kind of like quite similar to a lot of stories where people were once former athletes, and then now we call ourselves strength athlete. So
Yeah.
I guess that you can say that's how I got into powerlifting.
Yeah. What is your philosophy for coaching?
Yeah, so I think the most important thing for me is, I always say, everything works until it doesn't. What I mean by that is that throughout an athlete's training career, right, when I say everything work, I really mean everything work, because when they first start, you can literally do anything and it will work. And it will work to a point until it doesn't. And the role of the coach is to figure out what works next when something else doesn't work. And that process usually involves a lot of communication, a lot of feedback, right? Obviously, understanding the fundamental principles of like resistance training, adaptation, muscle hypertrophy, how does volume, frequency impacts fatigue, all of that kind of stuff is important. But I do think that the larger, the overarching theme of coaching is really understanding what works, what doesn't, and when to change, when to stick to something or change something if you are faced with when you have a decision to make. And like I said, that really just boils down to working with the lifter for a long period of time, understanding the past history of the lifter, and obviously putting things to the test, and then analyzing or observing what works best for the lifter at that specific time frame.
Oh, great. That's great. Okay, so about our auditory, because in Bulgaria it's not very popular to pay attention to nutrition.
Yeah.
And you're a person who is paying a lot of attention to nutrition.
Yeah.
Why is it important?
On a broader theme, I always say that you can stop training, right? If I say, hey, I want you, let's just say for example, this alien race came down to Earth, and the alien race said anybody who goes to the gym would be immediately shot with a laser beam and they'll die. You can actually stop training, you can stop exercising, and you still be able to lead your life relatively okay. But if the alien race said you have to stop eating, you probably you can't, because after a while you starve, right? This means that eating really is a critical part of life. And we always know that training is just one small element. Even if you train every single day, it's still a small chunk of your day. Whereas eating would actually take more time of the day, probably contributes to a larger, has a larger impact on your day-to-day activities, even if you're not training, right? So essentially, I always think that the role of nutrition, we look at it as a balance of fuel, right, for training and enjoyment. Food is, especially if you enjoy food, food can be very emotional, and that can carry over towards training. There are studies out there that actually show that when they use objective tests, right, to measure like fatigue and all that kind of stuff, right, it either works the same or worse than like subjective measures. When I mean subjective measures, I just mean like asking the lifter, or how do you feel, like this rate on 1 to 5 scale, right? And we know that eating can actually impact this, right? If you feel down, when people feel sad, people eat, and sometimes they feel happier. I'm not necessarily advocating that that is the best way to cope with your sadness or your negative emotion, but we know that to an extent it helps, right? That's why people have emotional eating. And if those measures can be impacted by food leading into a training session, right, and this is just solely on a subjective feeling, would you not pay attention to that like small element? And then obviously on the larger scheme of things, on the fuel aspect, right, how much protein you need based on your goals would determine the preservation of muscle mass, carbohydrates for fuel, general fat for health, right? Even if you're certain athletes in different sports, they even use fat as fuel, right? So at the end of the day, you have that balance between the emotional or mental aspect of nutrition and then the functional aspect of nutrition. And if you combine both of it, right, essentially, you will see that eating is just this large thing that encompasses so much of your life. And then you realize that it's not like training, it's like this circle and nutrition is in the middle, but it's more like eating is this circle and training is in the middle, right? So I think that people often think of it like, I only eat for my training, right? But in fact, you eat for your general life. And then when your general life is better, your training tends to be better.
That's right. I agree with you. I totally agree with you. I'll get you back to the competition.
Yeah.
How do you feel in general for what happened, and not only to the performance of Emil, but to everybody else, to the whole competition? I know that you have also another lifters that you were caring about. So how do you feel in general about this competition?
Yeah, I think.
Do you like it? So
Yeah, I think the competition was great. I mean, obviously SBD did a fantastic job.
Yeah.
The big thing was, from my observation, I saw it from this perspective that SBD made the reality of lifting as a potential way to earn money, like a reality for the lifters, right? The first prize winner for the males and females, right? Evie Corrigan and Jesus Olivares, they both got £30,000 each, right? That's a big chunk of money, right?
Yeah.
So it made it a reality that for this powerlifting, which is a really small sport, that hey, I could potentially be earning money from this. Made that a reality. Second was like the show up of the crowd was just super amazing, right? I think we had nearly almost 2,000 people, right? No event in powerlifting in the IPF history had 2,000 people.
Yeah.
And
first time.
This is people that are paying money to watch. Most IPF events are free, and we still don't have up to 2,000 people, but so you have almost 2,000 paid viewers, right?
Yeah.
That's crazy, right? And the third one is just allowing the athletes to engage with the community, the meet and greet. The meet ran a little bit late, right? So the meet ran a bit late, but people, it was like almost like 10:30, 11 p.m. When the meet, the people are still there, the lifters are still there. The lifters could be like, oh yeah, I'm so tired, maybe I'm sad, maybe I'm happy, I want to celebrate. But no, the lifters were there. The people came to see, and at the end of it, the chaperones on the venue had to say, shoo, go out, we are closing, right?
Right? Literally kicked us.
Yeah, so it just showed this, right? SBD had an element for the lifters, the payout, right? It really drew the crowd in, the people, and then you had the combination of the athlete interacting with the people, right? So I think the combination of all of this made the event great. In terms of the lifters that I have coach and help, obviously Emil, from a training, nutrition perspective, Gavin Aiden from nutrition, Taylor Edward from nutrition, and Evie Corrigan who won the female class for nutrition. I think everything went fantastic, right? It's quite different. I mean, you will hear their own recaps on their own social media, right? So I can't really say too much, but things went really well, and I would say that overall, there are some sense of like I wouldn't say disappointment, but things that I felt that could have been better, but there will always be that, right?
Yeah.
But I think the overall outcome was that everybody really did well. This is the first event of its kind, so yeah. So with it being the first, there's always some uncertainties. You don't know what to expect. The scoring system completely different. Even for me as a coach, right? When I look at the scoring system, I'm so not used to it because usually it's like, hey, we wait till the last day if we put 0.5, and then you win by 0.5. But now if I put 5 kilos, I need to look. Is 5 kilos a larger percentage than all the other lifters, right? So it's not as intuitive, right? But I think that the more this goes on and people learn more about the scoring system, things will be quite a little bit more like second nature, and hopefully by then, I know there's always mistakes in attempt selection, but then again, like I said, with all the uncertainty and unfamiliarity just due to the fact that the event was so new, there's always things that we can do better. But I think on the whole, I think the event went really well. I'm also really, really pleased with the event. Also really, really happy with the achievement of all the lifters that I have helped. And obviously I feel really honored to be a part of this event, and also really honored to support all the 4 lifters that competed at Sheffield.
Thank you. Hi Ryan.
Hey.
You may join.
I was just looking for my jacket that's not in here.
You always lose your jacket.
Well, I think Pete's got mine.
Alright. We're still in Ryan's meeting room, so we're filming from the King of the Lifts
Yeah.
spot. Okay, so I don't want to waste your time anymore. So thank you so much for this
Right.
a bit longer video than I was expecting actually.
I talk a lot, so I'm sorry. So lots of, hopefully YouTube give you all some Bulgarian subtitles. So
Yeah. I have to type it by myself.
thanks
Okay.
for having me.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.